Hello and welcome along. My name is Elizabeth Mwini. Today I will be narrating a true story of a student here at the University of Nairobi who recently completed her studies but she's yet to graduate. This is a true story as it was narrated to me, and so I will be relaying the facts, giving you the story, comparing, and everything so that you can understand. So I'm really excited that you're coming along with me on this very important story. The theme of my story is disability is not inability. So the story is of a girl named Amina Ongoi. Amina was born in a small village in Limuru, Kenya. She was born to two parents who were farmers, still farmers in Limuru today. So Amina had three siblings, two who were older than her and one who was younger than her. But Amina could not, she noticed that she was a bit different from her peers. You know, the kids, they were born around the same time and grew around the same age and the same time too. So she noticed she liked to read a lot. She would probably be around 5 or 6 years old, walking and find something, a piece of paper, a piece of magazine and a newspaper, and she would just pick it up and start reading. And so also the parents noticed that she was very, very concerned and she wanted to know so many things. She was inquisitive, she was curious. And so the mother used to, whenever she goes to the market, sometimes to sell her produce, she would bring a book, a storybook. She would bring Amina a storybook and Amina would read and, eventually get to understand. So the parents noticed that Amina was, let me say, very, very, very creative and super smart when she was very young. So they could not help but send her to nursery school, as it's called here, when she was very young, a bit younger than her peers. So she was sent to a small school in Limuru, and that she was really good. Her teachers used to tell the parents that Amina was extremely good. She would read, ask questions, and she seemed a bit super smart, as compared to her age because she was still very young. And most of her siblings, the two older siblings, they were not as concerned. They'd probably be concerned with things around the same area that they grew up in, and that was to grow crops, to farm, how to sell produce and stuff. And so Amina was a bit different. So not so many people were welcoming to this character, and some of her maternal and paternal aunties and uncles were like, I don't really think girls are meant to do that. I don't think you're supposed to be reading that much. I think you're supposed to probably know how to take care of babies, how to wash clothes and stuff. But the parents were very supportive of Amina, and they would also, as I said before, bring her books sometime, tell her things, and just to make sure that they answer the questions she had for a very long time. So during her 7th birthday, as you know, I think those who have been in the villages, they understand how birthdays are done. So you invite your friends, your neighbors, and they come, you have a cake and you celebrate. So Amina invited some of her friends, most of which are from the same school where she goes, and her sisters, her parents, but also her aunties and uncles were there. So one of her maternal uncle brought Amina a magnifying glass. So of course she was young, she didn't really know what that is, and so the uncle said, I bought you this, and I feel most of the time you have this character of being like a scientist. You are so curious, you want to know so many things at the same time. So I bought you this so that whenever you see something, you can use it as a glass to look it up, and then it becomes bigger, it is magnified, and you're able to see it well. After she was given the magnifying glass, Amina was very excited. So she ran over to her friends and says, my uncle gave me this as a gift. Of course, she did not understand what the magnifying glass did. But she told the friends, my uncle told me that we could use this to play. Whenever you look something up, it becomes bigger, it becomes magnified. And the friends were also very excited to try out this new birthday present. So they go out playing in the fields and they try out things. And whenever the friends look up something using the magnifying glass, to them it becomes bigger, magnified, and they're really excited and they want to do more of this, and then they tell Amina to look it up, and for Amina everything just becomes clearer. And so this was a concern, but remember, she was also a very young girl, so she did not really understand what was going on. For the friends, it becomes bigger. For her, it becomes clearer. It's like she's seeing things clearer for the first time. So at the end of the birthday party, so Amina goes over to her mother and she says, I used the magnifying glass that I was given by my uncle, and one thing I noticed is my friends were using it to look up things, and it became the things became bigger and magnified for them. But for me, it just became clearer for me. I thought I was seeing them clearer for the first time. So the mother did not really, take caution, and she wasn't moved. So Amina continued going to school, and as I mentioned before, she was a very brilliant student, very creative, and she was very smart. And during one of those lessons, when she was sitting at the back, and she noticed that she was unable to see the blackboard well, when the teacher is writing and she's unable to recognize some of the letters. And so one of the friends suggested, how about you speak to the teacher, instead of you sitting on the back, he could move you to the front of the class so you're able to see clearly. And so Amina took the advice and spoke to the teacher, and the teacher agreed to move her to the front of the class. But the problem did not really stop there. She was moved to the front, she could see the board, but she was also having difficulties reading from afar, and also she had issues reading from the papers, sometime when they were doing tests, reading from books, and she could not really recognize people very well when they were far. So, the one of her teachers was very concerned, and she thought this was not an ordinary problem. She advised Amina to speak to her parents so they could go to a doctor, a specialist. So she was examined, and maybe the doctor would, know if she had extra difficulties and problems, or maybe it was something they were just, a bit concerned of. And Amina spoke to her mother, and the mom at the point remembered what Amina said when she was 7 years old, when she got the magnifying glass, and she thought, yeah, maybe she has a point. And right now she's in middle school, she's a bit older, so maybe the mother thought, yeah, this might be something to look into. So she took Amina to an eye specialist, and remember, it's in Limuru, it's a very small town. So she took her to an eye specialist in Limuru, and they ran some tests on her, and the eye specialist said, we don't really have the best technology to assess if you have problems with your eyes. But one thing I was able to note is that she's short-sighted. She's unable to read from very far. She's unable to see people who are a bit far. So I'm going to give her glasses, that could help with the eyesight. And then you could come back after 3 months, so we could assess her and see if, the problem persists, or if, the glasses were helpful. And so, the mother was very receptive, and they were given the glasses. And Amina went back to school, and she's now wearing glasses, and she could see, and she was nearing the end of her primary school. That is, for most of us, when you get to do your primary school final exam, now you graduate to high school. The same problem that she had some time back, when she could not see people very well, she could not see the board, she could not see the paper when they're doing some test, it came back. Remember, they were told to go back for some tests when 3 months later, but because she was given the glasses and she could see, they ignored, so they did not go after 3 months. She goes back to the parents, and she tells the mother that, I have been having the same difficulties I had before I got the glasses, and I'm wondering, because I got these glasses to help me, but they're not really helping me at all. So the mother takes her back to the specialist, and the specialist says, I told you to bring her back here after 3 months, but you did not. And so they ran some tests on Amina to see whether the problem is still there, or there are more problems to it. And so the specialist said, here in our hospital, we do not really have the best technology, as I said before, that can really determine what the problem is. So I advise you to take her to Nairobi, where she could be in a better position to where the doctors could assess and see what the problem really is. She took her to Nairobi, and so Amina was assessed, and the doctor in Nairobi told her that she had a problem with her retina. Retina is the part of the eye that reflects light, so you're able to see things clearly. So she was told that this is something you inherit from parents, from grandparents. It's something hereditary, and so she was told the only way to correct the defect is if you get an implant, retina implant, which for our country here in Kenya, it's not really an option. That is something that you get to experience when you're living abroad, like in America or something like that. So the parents did not really have the money to take her to abroad, and so they thought that that was maybe the end of the road for Amina, and she was told some of the things that she was going to experience now that her condition was getting worse. She was going to experience night blindness, sensitivity to light, and the glasses did not really help, and they were not going to help. So this is something Amina had to come to terms with. And of course, it was very difficult, as you can imagine, for a young girl with dreams. And now she has to come to terms with the fact that she is going to be blind after some time, because this is a progressive condition. You know, you start not seeing clearly to a point where you don't see at all and finally become blind. So she did her final exam and she did not do very well. As you can imagine, she was not able to see well. But she still managed to secure an admission to a visually impaired school here in Nairobi. And while there, now she was taught how to use Braille, how to use magnifying glasses. They use some screen readers, so you're able to now be at par with other students. And while there, she was able to interact with other students with the same condition as her. And it wasn't very easy. First of all, she had to deal with societal attitude towards her. Now people started treating her differently. People started seeing her differently, and she had to experience so many things. While also at school, she had difficulties being able to know how to use Braille and such. And after high school now, she managed to pass very well, and she secured an admission again to the University of Nairobi Kikuyu campus, which is a school for education. So while there, that is where I can see she blossomed really, because at the University of Nairobi, she was able to meet friends, and she was able to make a community around her that helped her a lot. She was also trained on how to use the white cane where people used to walk, and she was able to go to a school for the needy, where she did education for the needy students. So now she did education, but the needy part where she helped other students who are visually impaired to be able to read, to be able to connect and such. So while at the University of Nairobi, she was elected to the Student Council to represent people with disabilities. And she was also able to join organizations that support people with disabilities, creating awareness, and she became very vibrant. So Amina right now, she has finished her studies at Kikuyu campus, but yet to graduate. And from my story, because I'm almost nearing the end, I want you people to understand how important it is to treat people with disabilities like normal people, because they are. Just because they have a certain defect, or just because they're having difficulties dealing with something, does not mean they're not able to achieve what you can be able to achieve. She was able to achieve so much, join communities, be vibrant. Right now, she's an advocate, she's a graduate, because she did not take her disability as something that prevents her to do something. Disability is not inability. That is something I'd want everybody to learn, to be able to understand that just because someone is able differently does not mean that they're not able to do things the way you're able to do them. I would want us to appreciate and to include these people in our community, to be inclusive and to be understanding also and compassionate towards them. That has been my story, and I hope you enjoyed it. As I said before, my name is Elizabeth Mwini.